Picture this scenario. An attack helicopter, inherently slow, loud, and practically the opposite of stealthy, glides effortlessly through the dark skies of what was once considered one of the most heavily defended nations on Earth. It hovers over the rocky terrain, locks onto its target with advanced thermal sensors, and then it fires. This devastating kinetic strike does not come from a $2 billion B-2 stealth bomber or a fifth-generation F-35 fighter jet dropping munitions invisibly from the stratosphere. It comes from an AH-64 Apache helicopter flying with absolute and uncontested impunity over the sovereign territory of Iran. This is exactly what is happening right now in real time in Iranian airspace. And if you truly understand what this specific image means from a tactical standpoint, then you understand that the story of this war has just forcefully entered a completely new chapter. It is a terrifying chapter that the Tehran regime never believed mathematically or militarily possible. Welcome back to the Global News 24. If you are new here, our channel is your premier destination for deep, data-driven analysis of major military conflicts and modern warfare tactics. Today, we dive deep into one of the most historically significant developments of Operation Epic Fury, the aggressive, large-scale deployment of A-10 Warthogs and Apache helicopters directly into the hostile skies of Iran and the contested waters of the Strait of Hormuz. We will analyze exactly what the sudden presence of these Cold War-era tank killers tells us about the true, catastrophic state of Iranian air defenses. Make sure to subscribe to the Global News 24 right now and turn on the notification bell immediately, because this global geopolitical story is moving at an incredible speed, and you absolutely need to be the first to know the verified facts on the ground. Let us start with the fundamental military doctrine that explains why the deployment of this specific aircraft matters so much. When top Pentagon officials and military strategists talk about establishing air superiority or air supremacy, they are referring to a very carefully defined sliding scale of operational control. Air superiority means your Air Force can carry out its missions with only limited and manageable interference from enemy fighter jets or anti-aircraft batteries. The sky remains fundamentally contested. Air supremacy, on the other hand, is a completely different matter. It is absolute and uncontested domination. It means the enemy Air Force is entirely grounded and its surface-to-air missile networks have been completely wiped out. Sending an aircraft like the A-10 Warthog, a subsonic jet designed specifically to fly low, fly slow, and get dangerously close to the battlefield, deep into enemy airspace, is the ultimate indicator that air supremacy has been massively achieved. You simply do not send vulnerable A-10s into an environment where modern anti-aircraft missiles are actively hunting targets. You send them in to clean up the battlefield only when the heavy front door has already been kicked in. To fully understand how the U.S. military achieved this unprecedented level of aerial dominance, we must look back at the violently explosive opening hours of this ongoing conflict. According to defense assessments published by the Institute for the Study of War, the initial waves of Operation Epic Fury were historically unprecedented. In the first 24 hours of the air campaign, an estimated 80% of Iran's integrated air defense network was systematically wiped off the map. Advanced radar and missile systems like the Bavar 373, as well as their heavily fortified Russian-made S-300 batteries, were blinded by massive electronic warfare attacks and pulverized by anti-radiation missiles. As an exclusive briefing from The Telegraph reports, coalition forces have successfully struck more than 10,000 individual military targets across Iranian territory since the official start of the operation. The skies were aggressively cleared, paving the way for these slow-moving hunters. But the high-altitude air campaign is only half of this complex story. The naval dimension, playing out in the waters of the Persian Gulf, is where the A-10 Warthog truly finds its terrifying new purpose. Over the past 3 decades, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy has built its entire maritime strategy around asymmetric warfare in the incredibly narrow waters of the Strait of Hormuz. Because they cannot match the overwhelming firepower of American guided missile destroyers, they rely almost exclusively on terrifying swarm tactics. According to maritime security analysts at Jane's Information Services, the Iranians use hundreds of highly maneuverable, small, fast attack craft and heavily modified civilian speedboats. These small vessels are often heavily armed with unguided multiple rocket launchers or packed with high explosives to act as suicide vessels. Their primary goal is to overwhelm the automated defenses of large coalition warships or cripple massive commercial oil tankers. The fundamental problem for the U.S. Navy is that these boats are too small, too fast, and far too numerous to be economically targeted by multi-million-dollar naval weapons like Tomahawk cruise missiles. And that is exactly why the A-10 Warthog was unexpectedly called into this maritime fight. This iconic aircraft was famously built at the height of the Cold War around a single, devastatingly powerful weapon, the 30mm GAU-8 Avenger rotary cannon. This absolute monster of mechanical engineering fires massive armor-piercing shells at the mind-boggling rate of 3,900 rounds per minute. As military aviation experts pointed out in a recent analysis by The War Zone, a highly controlled 2-second burst from the A-10's main cannon is more than enough to literally shred an Iranian fast attack craft and turn it into an unrecognizable cloud of shattered fiberglass. Moreover, the modernized A-10C variants are heavily equipped with highly accurate infrared-guided AGM-65 Maverick air-to-surface missiles and laser-guided rockets. These precision munitions allow American pilots to visually spot, track, and surgically eliminate Iranian mine-laying boats from miles away, neutralizing the threat well before the vessels can drop their magnetic payload into international shipping lanes. The legendary survivability of this aircraft makes it perfectly suited for this incredibly dangerous coastal environment. The pilot physically sits inside a massive titanium bathtub that completely surrounds the cockpit, protecting them from heavy ground fire. Combined with its unique aerodynamic ability to loiter over a specific target area for hours, much longer than fuel-thirsty stealth fighters, the A-10 provides continuous and utterly terrifying overwatch for Allied naval vessels navigating the mine-infested waters below. This extended loiter time means Warthog pilots can patiently wait for IRGC fast attack craft to emerge from their hidden coastal caves, striking them the very moment they enter open water. If you find this rigorous deep dive into military strategy and geopolitical analysis highly valuable, please take a brief moment right now to click the subscribe button for the Global News 24. Your continued support is exactly what allows our independent team to look past the sensationalist headlines of mainstream media and constantly bring you the raw, unfiltered truth about the massive conflicts shaping our modern world. We rely heavily on informed viewers like you, so join our dedicated community today and make sure your notifications are turned on. The profound psychological and strategic impact of seeing these specific, highly visible aircraft operating freely over sovereign Iranian territory cannot be overstated. For decades, the Iranian Supreme Command has constantly broadcast aggressive state propaganda, assuring its citizens and proxy militias that its national airspace was an impenetrable fortress. Today, under the relentless pressure of Operation Epic Fury, this carefully constructed illusion has been permanently shattered. As two former commanders of the United States Central Command stated in an interview with Bloomberg News, the skies over the entirety of Iran now undeniably belong to the U.S. military. The unpunished presence of A-10s methodically hunting targets over the mainland is undeniable proof of this bold statement. It is a deeply humiliating reality check for the authoritarian regime, demonstrating that its most closely guarded military assets are now completely exposed to systematic destruction from the air. However, achieving this absolute aerial dominance brings us directly to the ultimate strategic dilemma of this global crisis. The United States and its coalition partners have systematically dismantled Iran's conventional military infrastructure and entirely neutralized its integrated air defenses. The clear political objective of this kinetic coercion is to force the Iranian regime to surrender unconditionally, lift its suicidal blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, and alter its hostile posture in the region. But the crucial question remains: what happens if Tehran categorically refuses to yield? In a public broadcast analyzed by Al Jazeera, Iranian leaders vowed to endure any level of destruction rather than concede. What happens if the supreme leaders decide that the public humiliation of capitulation is simply a much heavier price to pay than enduring the continuous bombardment of their country? If the regime decides to absorb these heavy blows and absolutely refuses to back down, the U.S. military will eventually run out of high-value targets to bomb from the air. At that precise moment, the terrifying prospect of an American ground invasion, deploying tens of thousands of heavily armed troops onto Iranian soil to physically secure the coastline and permanently reopen the Strait of Hormuz, rapidly shifts from a distant worst-case scenario to an immediate reality. According to analysts at the Rand Corporation, a full-scale ground invasion of the Islamic Republic of Iran would be a military undertaking of monumental proportions. It would be infinitely more complex, bloody, and costly than previous military operations due to Iran's immense geographical size, its unforgiving mountainous terrain, and its densely populated urban centers. The global economic implications of such an escalation would be universally catastrophic. International oil markets, already highly volatile due to the current blockade, would crash into unprecedented territory. With nearly 20% of the world's daily oil supply permanently paralyzed by a protracted ground war in the Persian Gulf, energy experts recently speaking to Reuters predicted that global crude prices could easily surpass the terrifying mark of $150 a barrel. This spike would instantly send devastating shockwaves of crippling inflation through the global economy, potentially triggering a worldwide recession. Furthermore, major rival powers like China, which relies heavily on Middle Eastern oil imports, and Russia, which could capitalize on the Western military distraction, are watching every American maneuver with intense scrutiny. The long-term calculations of these rival nations will depend entirely on Washington's willingness to go all the way. Ultimately, this is not merely a passing news story about the technical specifications of aging military aircraft. It is a profound historical turning point concerning the absolute limits of classical military deterrence. It is a striking story about the terrifying speed and ruthlessly destructive efficiency of modern Western air campaigns. It vividly highlights the inevitable consequences for a nation that allows years of military degradation to continue unchecked. And it clearly demonstrates the extraordinary power that the United States can project across the globe. The diplomatic and military timeline is closing rapidly. The global economy is bleeding out, and the entire world is holding its breath. We will continue to keep you updated on every critical development of this escalating crisis right here on the Global News 24. Our team is meticulously tracking the secret diplomatic channels, shifting tactical deployments, and the panicked reaction of global energy markets. In the meantime, we want to hear from you. Leave us your detailed thoughts and your geopolitical analysis in the comments section below. Do you firmly believe that a massive ground operation by U.S. forces is now inevitable? Or do you think a secret diplomatic agreement will miraculously be reached before the global economy collapses? Share your unique insights with our community. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Global News 24 right now. Thank you so much for watching. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and we will see you very soon for our next crucial update on this historic conflict.